Hello everybody, I'm here with Bernd Müsing and I'm here in Würzburg, Germany in his company Arcus, and he makes bows, and we're going to tell a bit about what makes a good bow important and what makes a good bow, and also the innovation in bows in the last, I think, 15 years or something.
Right, it's actually 20 years now, or more than 20 years already.
Okay.
But yeah, first of all, welcome to Würzburg, home of very beautiful wines and beautiful landscape, of course, and also a city that's full of classical music, which we enjoy tremendously. Yeah, and home to most modern bow making in the world. So we consider ourselves a little bit of a capital here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although Würzburg hasn't been the center of violin making, like Cremona or Mittenwald or other places. But we're changing this a little bit now.
Okay.
A lot of musicians come here every year, and also makers and dealers from around the world to see how we are doing our babies, how we're making them, and what is behind it. And actually there is a lot behind it, as many people have already found out. It is a very special science and art and craftsmanship, and we just love supplying players with the most beautiful tools.
Yeah, but just to go a little bit back to basics, because some people are watching and they're playing for maybe 1, 2, 3 years,
right,
and they're thinking, okay, it's a stick with hair and I need to get a nice violin, but what makes the difference in bows?
Well, it's like the breath for a singer. You can voice the nicest sounds. If you don't have the breath to sing it out, you will only speak but not sing. And the same is true with the violin. All the tone production, all the beauty of the sound comes out of the right hand, of the bow hand. Of course, the left hand has to hit the right notes, but only what the right hand does is then coming out as a beautiful sound. And the bow, what the bow does, it has two major implications. One is in the sound, and that is when the string vibrates, it can only vibrate as the bow vibrates, because they are just like almost glued together. You see, that's a big difference to the guitar, where you pluck the string and then the string just vibrates freely.
Yeah.
That never or rarely happens on the violin. Most of the time the bow's on the string.
Yeah.
And the string can really only resonate and vibrate together with the bow. And that's why the bow has such a huge impact on the sound of the instrument. And number two, obviously, is the playability. There's many things, many music where you have to bounce the bow, or you have a staccato, or ricochet where you throw the bow and it then bounces back. And all these playability issues also play a much important role, because if you have a bow that doesn't bounce properly, you just can't execute the music as it was designed from the composer.
Yeah, so you can add the sound colors by having a good bow, and of course bowing technique. Right. But the difference that you notice between different bows is in the handleability, if it helps you or if it stops you from doing things or progressing.
That's the next thing. So there is not the best bow, but there's the best bow for every player. Your hand is not like mine hand, and your way of moving your hand is different from mine. And we all have a different feel for forces and for vibrations. So that is the next thing. We always have to try to find the right bow for the right player, and the right bow for the right instrument, because again, the resonances of a bow and the violin should match.
Yeah.
So it's a match between the three. So the instrument, the player, and the bow, it must all work together, come together. And I would say it's about equal terms. Every one of these three components has the same importance, and if the violin doesn't work, you get no results. The bow doesn't work, you get no results. I mean, if the player doesn't practice, then again the same problem. So you have to get it all together.
Yeah.
What a good bow does, even for a player who's still learning, is it guides you. It shows you the way.
Yeah.
It shows you how you should do your bounces and your bowings and your détaché. And it also guides you in the sound of the violin. So a good bow will always give you a good feedback that helps you learn faster.
Mm-hmm. That's, I think, also important to notice that people shouldn't play with a very crappy stick.
Oh yeah.
And think, well, I'm going to get a better bow when I'm better. But you're not going to get better if you don't have a good bow. So that's the the three things that are.
Absolutely. Well, this is one of the common things we can see in the careers of some famous players. When you read those, when you learn about these people from reading their autobiography, for example, every time you see that they were getting a very, very good instrument at very young ages.
Yeah.
And very good teachers too, but they all had very nice instruments to learn on, and very good bows, of course.
Yeah.
And nobody becomes a great player with a crappy instrument and with a crappy bow. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I notice with selling instruments and bows is that if I play on an instrument and one is warm sounding and another is bright sounding or whatever, then if I play it to someone else, it sounds different, but still the warm one is the warm one and the bright one is the bright one.
Absolutely.
And but with bows, it's a lot more personal, I think, because you can't pick a bow for someone else at all.
Right. Right. It's like with shoes or with a pair of glasses. It's highly individual. And my only advice is to try as many good bows as you possibly can to find the one that suits you. It's also the reason why we do not only make one series of bows or one range of bows, but we make the same bow with octagonal or round shapes, or we make them a little heavier or a little softer. So quite a bit of a variation to be able to find the right bow for everybody.
Yeah.
There is not the one bow that does it for everybody.
Yeah.
So there's one big danger that we see happens sometimes between teachers and students, that the teacher has made an experience that this and this bow or string or instrument will work fine for him or her, and then he or she tells all the students they should play with the same string, with the same kind of bow, the same kind of instrument, but that doesn't necessarily make the players happy because it doesn't suit their style and their wish how they want to sound. So it's more favorable actually that every player who's looking for an instrument and a bow gets some good advice and help from people who know a lot about instrument and bows, but the final decision should always be with the player itself. And you should just listen to your feelings, how you really feel well. And so if you, for example, look at the bow hold of famous players, you see they all develop their very individual style. What I find, for example, very fascinating is the funny bow hold of Jascha Heifetz, who puts his fingers like a paw. And I could never play like that. And you see him doing the craziest stuff with this kind of bow hold, which I find completely amazing. And other players you see do like this. So completely different bow hold and everything in between. My bow hold is somewhere in between there. And so there is no right or wrong bow hold, there is no right or wrong bow. Because every bow responds differently to different bow holds.
And also different bowing motions.
Absolutely.
People do a lot of motion and some people almost don't do it.
And some have a heavier arm or a longer one, others are shorter and stronger, whatever. And everything changes a little bit the way the bow reacts and you actuate the bow. That's why you really have to find your own bow. But on the other hand, of course, there's also some factors that are like our standards, or like the frame and the physical rules around which we have to work. And that is, for example, the strings.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the tension of modern strings, they are almost exactly the same.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if you play a Tomastic or Pirastro or Daddario or whatever string, they're almost exactly the same. And so the resulting forces that you apply to these strings is also almost identical.
Yeah.
And that are the factors which we use to design a bow or construct a bow around, which we do in a more scientific way than traditional bow making, which works a little more like trial and error. Mm-hmm. We actually design our bows to work on these modern strings precisely.
Yeah, and with modern strings, you mean the strings that we are using for the last 50 years, I think? Because it's, I think, important to notice that in the 19th century, everyone was playing on gut strings.
Absolutely, and well away into the 20th century.
Yeah.
Pure gut strings, meaning no windings, and no steel strings like we do have on a violin E string, for example, that wasn't available.
Yeah.
And those strings are obviously a lot lighter and a lot softer. Yeah. And wooden bows were actually designed to match these strings, not modern high tension strings, which are aluminum, silver, gold wound steel strings, which allowed to be played with much higher forces, and which we require much higher forces to be played with a bow.
Yeah, because the design of the current bow, the wooden bow, and most carbon bows is actually the design from Tourte.
The 19th century, right.
Yeah. 1800 or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true.
And what do you do differently?
Well, pretty much everything. So actually that was a starting point. I was an amateur player and an engineer, and I was shopping for a bow. And I was looking to find a bow that would not bottom out when I would play fortissimo or double stops. And it didn't matter how much money I was willing to spend, that bow was just not out there.
Yeah.
Not a carbon bow, not a wooden bow, it just didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat down and tried to figure out what was wrong there, what forces apply, what materials could be used, and came to the conclusion that we needed a completely new bow.
Yeah, because the violin itself has changed a lot in the past 200 years, but actually the bow didn't.
Right.
And strings have changed and the whole setup.
Exactly. And so I found out that we actually need a bow that's almost twice as strong than a wooden bow. Mm-hmm. And you can't do that, not with aluminum, not with titanium, not with any other material, except you go for carbon fiber with, and that's the next big thing, with a very low epoxy content. Mm-hmm. A carbon fiber bow consists not only from carbon fibers, but from something that holds them together. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we have no epoxy, fibers would be like any other cloth. It would be soft. Yeah. So it would be completely noodly here, like a soft noodle, like a cooked noodle, right? Yeah. So it gets stiff only because the epoxy holds the fibers in place. Yeah. And the tricky bit starts exactly there. To reduce or to have to make a stick with as low an epoxy content as any possible. Yeah. Because the plastic sounds like boom, it's there. Yeah. And the carbon fibers is resonant like glass. Bing.
And I think that's the what you mentioned about the plastic.
Right.
Is what people notice with very cheap carbon bows or carbon composite bows.
Yes. Because they actually consist more from epoxy, from resin, than from fibers. Yeah. So way too much epoxy in it. That's easy to make. It's quick and cheap, easy to make. But every % of epoxy you try to get out of the stick makes things more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the difference between, let's say, $1,000 carbon bow and $50
or 50
or 100 or exactly. Whatever. Yeah.
I mean, you also find many other details that are very different. Mm-hmm. Only the hair that we put on our bows would be worth €100 roughly. And but on the use of that is that with our hair, a professional player can play 2 years, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and the hair is still good.
Yeah.
If you have a cheap hair on a cheap bow, it'll last a couple of weeks, and they're gone.
Yeah.
So it's the difference in the hair quality really makes a huge difference, and it's similar to like, for example, wooden violins.
Yeah.
You have 2 wooden violins. One is a Stradivari,
yeah,
with a beautiful sound, which costs a fortune, and the other one is just a cheap factory fiddle that sounds terrible.
Yeah, it's both wood.
It's both wood, and both the same kind of wood, and they look very similar, but they are not at all.
Yeah.
And the absolute same true is true with wood, with bows, and with hairs, and all these things.
All the details that add up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one car is made from steel, and that's just a Fiat, and the other one is a Ferrari, and you wouldn't say it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And so if you look a little closer into bows, you'll find subtle and huge differences everywhere.
Yeah, and I think the more you develop your bowing technique and the more bows you try, the more you are going to discover those differences.
Absolutely, yes. And so it's absolutely worthwhile to invest a little bit of time to see what it does for you.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of brands in carbon fiber bows.
Right.
And a lot of them are still in the same design as Turte in 1800 actually.
Right.
Are there copycats of your bows? Or what makes a difference from, say, a brand like Goede bow?
Well, there's 2 things here. One is that most people who are involved in bow making are not engineers or, they have no background in science or technology, whatever.
Yeah.
So all they do is pretty much copy what they see and just use different material.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, they end up with a product that is not really what you would want. It looks similar, but it behaves funny and sounds a little weird, maybe. So that's one issue. The other issue is that making a high quality carbon fiber bow is actually a very demanding task. It's very, very difficult. And although we're out on the market with our bows for 18 years now already, I've heard quite often that somebody's trying to make an Arcus bow copy, but it never came to it. I've never seen one.
Yeah.
And I have a pretty good idea why that is.
Yeah.
And it's really, really not so easy.
Okay.
Everybody's invited to do it. I would actually even maybe, if you're going to try and make some high-end carbon fiber bows, I might give away some secrets. I might not tell everybody everything, but I would actually love to see a little more competition in this part of the market. But
the market is very traditional, so they don't really experiment in a scientific way, perhaps.
Well, because that's craftsmen. I mean, all the bow makers, they have learned to make wooden bows.
Yeah,
and they're not engineers, they're not designers.
Yeah.
And they're not scientists. They don't know why the bow works as it does.
Yeah.
And they don't have a background in designing a new bow. And so that really makes a big, big difference to what we are doing here. We start with research and developing a product. We design, actually we calculate everything on the bow. So nothing is by chance here or by just try and error. This is not what we do at all.
Yeah.
But to get to this point, you need a very different education to begin with.
Yeah.
So a learned bow maker will not be able to make a carbon fiber bow.
Yeah, it's a totally different craft.
Yeah, it is. It is, yes.
Yeah.
So also our team in the workshop, there is not a single learned bow maker in it.
Yeah.
It's goldsmith, it's dental technicians, it's all kind of people from different professions who know how to handle difficult materials and small things with utmost precision. And then they learn here all the special trade about handling carbon fibers and doing the hair and the leather and the silver and gold stuff and all that.
Yeah.
So every single worker who's in our workshop, we have trained for many years.
From your own research and development in the past.
Exactly.
And in the present perhaps also.
Right. And every maker who enters our team brings in their own experience.
Yeah.
Say as a dental technician or as a goldsmith. Yeah. And add some to the pool of experience, and so that we constantly keep developing our quality and our manufacturing processes. But still, it remains a very difficult and time-consuming task to make these bows. That's not changing at all.
And for the players watching, if you play with an Arcus for the first time,
right,
what will you notice that's different? Because it's made in a different way with a different material. And yeah, players think, oh, that's all well. But what do you actually notice when I have one in my hands? Of course, the best way to find out is to actually have one in your hands, but perhaps you can describe it.
Actually, for me, it's a little difficult now because I'm so used to the bows. But what I see in other players when they try them the first time is that they're a little shaken because the technique they would normally apply with a wooden bow all of a sudden has changed. So something is different. Let me try to illustrate it that with an example. If you've been driving cars all your life, but all of a sudden you sit in a Ferrari or in a Porsche, in a sports car, and you've never had driven a sports car before, that's the same thing. Everything's too direct and wow, and you really have to find your way through the first curves, and so it's really different. And it's not better or worse initially, but it's really different. So you have to feel your way into it.
The response is very different. Yeah. The response is, I think, from my own experience, far more direct.
Exactly.
So the first couple of weeks, you actually have to learn to do
less.
Actually, because everything is easier, but also smaller. Yeah. Just as in a sports car, that if you're used to a Fiat 500 or something, and you are used to, if you go for grocery shopping, you just hit the gas full, you don't have to do that with the Ferrari.
Exactly. Like very, very direct comparison. If you look at a steering wheel, to turn a corner in a Fiat 500, you have to turn your wheel like twice around or what? Yeah. And in a Ferrari, you do just this. Yeah. So you're around the corner, so you do much less, and that's the same true with our Arcus bows because they're so much stiffer that you normally do too much initially. Yeah. Where you just move very little, and you get to the same result.
So you can make your bone technique more subtle, actually.
Yep. That's what you do.
Then also make it more refined in learning to handle it.
Right. You also get a very direct feedback. So that's one of the things that might surprise you in the beginning, that it is not like working in a big soft pillow and a cushion, but bang, you instantly hit something firm. Yeah. And you get a very direct feedback on all your actions, both in the sound and in the play. Yeah. And that is a little weird in the beginning, but once you get used to it, you go back to your wooden bow and it really feels sluggish and slow and unresponsive and heavy.
Yeah, and you have to do all kinds of, you hear people always have to develop all kinds of tricks and stuff to get the bow to do what they want. So they have to, the bow doesn't do directly what they want. So they have to find all kinds of ways, workarounds and stuff to get used to that bow. And
that's exactly what you find, for example, in professional players. When they first play with an Arcus bow, they have to stop all that extra work. Yeah. They have to just lose their workarounds. They don't need them anymore. Yeah, and actually they're in the way.
Yeah, if you don't need the tricks and the workarounds and stuff and the extra work, then you can get to develop, I think, to a higher level.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you can just play more comfortable, faster if you want, stronger if you like. So actually the window of opportunity is just quite a bit larger. You can play more silent or louder. You can play slower with an extremely calm bow because it just doesn't shake. Or you can play faster and you still feel safe.
Yeah.
So actually the window of all you can do on the instrument is enlarged.
Yeah, because the bow is almost never out of control.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
wooden bows sometimes get wobbly and out of
Right.
control, or you press into it and it doesn't respond, that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
You don't get that.
Mm-hmm.
Then how long does it take people to get used to this?
So one funny story was like there was a soloist who played an Arcus bow for the first time in her life in the morning, and she played a full concert in the evening with a bow because she was so happy about it.
Wow, it's tricky.
Yeah, right. For her, it was the perfect solution. She was playing a modern work that was really difficult.
Okay.
And it was hard to get all the fast piccatos right.
Yeah.
And then with the Arcus bows, it went like pearls on a string.
Okay.
And so that's why she decided to instantly go for it.
Yeah.
And there's other occasions where like half a year after a player purchased a bow, he calls me and tells me, look, last week I found out how to do this and that. So for some players, it takes really a long time to discover all the possibilities in the bows.
Yeah.
The normal case is that it takes about a week to really understand most of what our bows do.
Yeah.
And then there's a long time where you discover all the stuff you've never thought possible on a violin that you can actually do with an Arcus bow.
Yeah.
So the new stuff, the new things.
Yeah.
And that can be a very interesting discovery for many players.
Yeah, you can keep discovering things in a bow.
Right.
And what I was wondering, we already talked about it, the market is quite conservative in new things. And some teachers say that, carbon bows don't have character. But I would say exactly the opposite is true, because you have a lot more character and response from an Arcus bow. What do you say about this? Because some teachers think, well, a carbon bow is a carbon bow, but as we said at the beginning of the interview, there are many differences in carbon bows.
I completely understand the reaction of many teachers or many people, who've seen 10 or 20 different carbon fiber bows, and they all looked a little different or came with different brands.
Yeah.
But they were all of the same mediocre quality, and all their sound and playability was okay, maybe, or mediocre. And then when they run into name number 21, which happens to be Arcus, for example, then they already know, carbon bows is something really boring or not some very good quality. And then they're not really prepared for this completely new adventure that is coming towards them.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I experience so often when we are at exhibitions or at shows or at ESTA meetings, wherever, where people who already know everything about carbon fiber bow suddenly discover Arcus bows and then see, oh, wait a minute, this is a very, very different animal.
Yeah, it's completely different.
Yeah, and
but
then
there are, of course, so many brands of kind of similar carbon fiber bows.
Right.
For example, on eBay, and they have different colors and different frogs, perhaps, and they look very different, but it's a lot of them are actually the same, and even from the same factory.
Right.
In China, somewhere.
Yeah. That is true. There's a big factory cranking out these sticks in high volume. They're all very low quality, and all made pretty much in the same way. You find them at all different price points and all different brands and different colors, as you said. But really, the core of it is that they don't differ too much. Yeah. And again, it's like a cheap Chinese wooden factory fiddle. You can search as long as you want. You will never find a Stradivari within them. Yeah. And the same is true with the cheap carbon bows. There are no really high-end bows in there. Yeah. Some are decent. They also run a bit of luck here and there. But what we do is a completely different story. We're heading for a totally different level of performance beyond what wooden bows can offer. Yeah. And that's our daily business. And as the state is now, you'll find no orchestra in Germany where not a handful of players are happily playing their Arcus bows and don't go back to wood. Yeah. Actually, I would say 95% of all people who own an Arcus bow play that bow only. Yeah. Because every wooden bow in comparison looks clumsy or doesn't deliver the sound, or it's just less comfortable to play or too slow. And so once you find your Arcus bow, you're usually lost.
Yeah. Or found. It's just the way you want to say it.
Right.
I've got on my YouTube channel viewers from all over the world. If people want to try out Arcus, of course in Holland they can go to me, but can you tell a bit how you sell them? Where can people try them, buy them? How?
There are hundreds of dealers around the world who stock our bows, and you can find a long list of those on our website in the dealer section. And if you don't find a dealer around your place, then just contact us and we'll give you directions, or maybe even be able to or arrange a trial shipment of bows from wherever you are.
Okay, great.
Should work around the world.
Yeah, I'll put in the link below this video. All right, are there other things you want to mention about bows in general, or Arcus bows?
Well, there's one thing I want to say is that we are really dedicated in making the finest bows and the perfect tool for every player. If you have a chance to try Arcus bows and find that something's missing and you're missing a certain type of bow or a certain quality, please let me know. We really do everything to make everybody really happy.
Great. All right, I think that's a great ending of the interview. Thank you very much for all this valuable information. And well, thanks for watching.